So I wanted to discuss the impact of these economic sanctions that the EU and the West have placed on Russia as a result of what's happening in Ukraine. There are many facets to this. So again, just to bring you up to date, we had Russia being removed from SWIFT, from the international banking system, in part. So they didn't target the energy-related banks, because they still want to buy gas from Russia. They know damn well that if they do that, they're shooting themselves in the foot. And you could argue they're actually doing that already, just by virtue of going after Russia, and not only through SWIFT, but of course, another aspect of this is they've targeted Russia's central bank. They've frozen around half of the central bank's assets. And this is important because when you are hit with sanctions or you have some sort of other economic crisis, the currency plunges, right? We're seeing this in Syria. This is manufactured by the West, where the Syrian pound, the lira, it's catastrophic. The devaluation, the inflation in the country, catastrophic. That is an expected consequence. The Russians knew this was going to happen. And one thing that banks do, that states do when this happens, is they try to look, for example, to their foreign exchange reserves, Forex, right? So another thing they can do is they can do what Vladimir Putin is doing here. Take a look at this. So the Russian president has signed a decree banning exporting foreign currency from Russia in an amount exceeding the equivalent of $10,000. Right? So the ruble is not doing well. And to shore up the currency, they're preventing foreign currency, like dollars, as one example, from leaving the country. And this is a standard measure that you would see. Syria done the same thing. Let me show you what's happening to the ruble, the Russian currency. This is from Al Jazeera. They say the Russian ruble plunges to a record low amid outrage over Ukraine. Okay, so the Russian ruble plummeted to a record low against the dollar on Monday amid an accelerating Western-led campaign to punish and isolate Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. Okay. Investors flocked to safe haven currencies, including the US dollar and yen, after Vladimir Putin put nuclear armed forces on high alert. The fourth day of the biggest assault. Yeah, okay, well, that I feel like they forgot about Yugoslavia. But the measures include blocking some banks from SWIFT. Remember, SWIFT is the international an international banking system. There are 11,000 banks worldwide that are connected to the system, and by removing Russia from that, what this does is it prevents Russia from buying, from importing things and exporting things. Okay, and for example, when it comes to gas, that's a big Russian commodity that's exported. That cuts revenue. Obviously, if you're not able to get paid for your gas or whatever else you're exporting, that cuts revenue, right? And then vice versa, if you need to import something that's crucial, that people need, whatever it is, just as an example, let's say food. There are a lot of countries, for example, Lebanon or Yemen, where 90% of the food is imported. They don't grow anything. It's not domestically produced. So if you're hit with sanctions, you can't buy, or you're removed from SWIFT, in this case, you cannot pay people to send you the food, right? Just as an example here. So let's look at the ruble. The ruble plunged as low as 119 per dollar, and was last down nearly 29% at 118. Now this is actually from a few days ago, right? So this is from Monday, from just 48 hours ago. The last I checked, the ruble was worth less than 1 US cent, not even a dollar, a cent. I thought this was relatively good. I don't necessarily agree with the author and everything they're saying, but they listed a lot of the things that are happening. And so they say how Vladimir Putin miscalculated, right? That's a phrase that you hear a lot. They say that he didn't anticipate Europe uniting behind Ukraine and being hit with SWIFT and also the Russian central bank. And so this is a phrase you're hearing a lot. It's that's the slogan right now in the West, in Western media. And so again, they do this whole pseudo psychoanalysis. Oh, he used to read a lot of Marx and Engels, and he was influenced by them and Lenin, and that's why he really appreciates the importance of the economy. And no. Yeah, so okay, we get it. Economy's important. Thank you. I think he knows that. Let me just scroll down to where I wanted to show you. Okay, this is about sanction proofing. So the EU and the West are saying, well, Vladimir Putin has taken measures to sanction-proof the Russian economy, especially after 2014, right? And that this is not going to help him. That these sanctions are so tough that he can't do anything. What are these measures that Putin took, for example? They started developing an alternative to the SWIFT. which is it's Russian based, and it doesn't have, obviously it's not as widely connected as Swift, but they did start developing that. Whether they actually switch to that and focus everything on trade with China and Eurasia, I don't know. But that is, I'm just telling you one of the things that they started after 2014. Another thing is de-dollarizing the reserves. So, a lot of countries think that it's good to have US dollars to shore up their currency, and they keep lots of them. Now, the thing is, if you're cut off from US dollars and, you're sanctioned, you're out of luck. So what Russia's been doing is making sure it has more euros and gold and British pounds than dollars. Do you understand? So that way, if in the case of sanctions or in the case of the currency plunging, they can try and shore up the currency by relying on the forex reserves, but not dollars, right? So that's some of the measures that they've taken. Now they're saying, well, that's not gonna help them because these sanctions are designed to block Moscow's central bank from buying rubles from Western financial institutions and stabilizing the currency and so on. Another thing that happened to stem the decline, the Russian central bank more than doubled its key interest rate from 9.5% to 20%, okay? And ordered Russian exporting companies to sell foreign currencies and buy rubles. So another thing that they've done also is they've said that anyone who's earning their salary in US dollars has to exchange 80% of that to rubles, okay? That's another measure that they've taken. And the Biden administration has imposed a freeze on the central bank of Russia's assets held in the U.S., right? That's what we're talking about when they've targeted Russia's central bank. And the Treasury Department prohibited any U.S. person, including American banks and businesses, from engaging in transactions with Russia's central bank, its finance ministry, or sovereign wealth fund. Okay? So, again, that's a problem because when the U.S. targets you, you become a hot potato. They drop you. Everyone wants to drop you, and you are radioactive. Half of the transactions on the planet are conducted in U.S. dollars, right? Most countries don't want to piss off the U.S. So this is very bad, right? Because then you become radioactive, and no one wants to deal with you. And of course, then you can't access your own assets in the EU, in the UK, in the US. That is a big problem. The fall in the value of the ruble, they say here, will quickly force Russian consumers to pay more for everything from French wine to iPhones. And the sanctions on the central bank could reverberate throughout Russia's financial system, effectively cutting off large parts of it from the outside world and raising the possibility of bank runs. So bank run is when people panic, they go to the bank and try to withdraw their money. This is in Moscow, okay? And you can see how people are lining up at the ATM trying to withdraw their money. That's a long line. So people are panicking, right? Because of the sanctions. I saw other videos. There are actually much more. But that just gives you a tiny example. Right, so they say, where do things go from here? They say, in the coming days, Putin could conceivably move to cut off oil and gas exports to Western Europe. Even though the loss of revenues would exert further pressure on the Russian economy, such a move could cause greater pain in European countries in the form of energy shortages and sharply higher prices. That's what we've been talking about. That, Russia could, in response to all of the sanctions, just turn off the gas valves. Now, as far as I know, they've never actually done that and weaponized that. But I don't know. I think they're going to see how serious they are about these sanctions, how long it lasts, and go from there. Because that's also a nuclear option. That's really like, you went too far. Yeah, 60%, was it? 60% of European gas comes from Russia. So, if Europeans want to have a fun time freezing, what Europeans could do is, so German economic officials had lined up alternative sources of natural gas from countries such as Qatar and Azerbaijan. And this is what we were addressing with Pepe earlier, that the Europeans think, we can just go to other countries. No, even if you could, that would take so much time that, regardless, you will have to endure an energy crisis if that happened. I really don't think the media are explaining to you how dangerous and this situation is. It's really playing with fire, because if you keep poking the Russians, you keep poking the bear financially, economically, I mean, Putin the other day, he said, we got nukes. Remember that. That's basically what he's saying. Watch out. You're declaring war on us economically. We have nukes. We can also engage the nuclear option. He didn't say that word for word, obviously, but he put the nuclear forces on high alert in response to all of this. In international relations, that's what it means. He's responding to that with a show of force. Now, when it comes to getting gas from other places, again, even if that worked and you were able to successfully substitute all of the gas that Europe needs, and that it gets the same amount that it gets from Russia, that is a tremendous logistical effort. I don't see how they could do that realistically. I mean, the US sells liquefied natural gas. Europe doesn't even have the fucking terminals to accommodate those things, right? Germany has to build 2 of them, and it started building 2 of them to even begin contemplating such a thing. It's not as easy as it sounds. You know, for better or worse, whatever, you know, whichever way you want to look at it, Europe does have a dependency on Russian gas. That's just the reality. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, the US wanted to get take a bite out of its market share, but I don't think that's the underlying the root cause. I think the number one root cause is, of course, to malign Russia, to, you know, basically turn it into a pariah, as an outcast. Because when you see Russia and Germany, or Russia and Europe, forging closer ties, that is a threat to US hegemony. This is the crux of the issue. So it's that, in addition to NATO. And the people who are, again, I am so sick of these stupid, childish fucking idiots who want to talk about Ukraine or international relations without the international relations. They make it like, oh, it's about Putin and his personality. He's a deranged person. Shut the fuck up, you idiot. It has nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that. You know, you can criticize him without... This is a conspiracy theory. Like, honestly, they're contemplating like what kind of mental disorder he has or something. That's a conspiracy theory. They're grasping at all kinds of straws just to avoid addressing NATO expansion and Europe forging closer ties with Russia. That's it. That's it. And of course, Ukraine itself. I mean, the issue with Ukraine becoming a vassal state of the West, specifically the US. You cannot look back at the last 8 years and act like it doesn't matter and it doesn't play into the context. Come on. Stop. You know, you're insulting yourself, honestly. You can't take that, take this issue out of context and forget about the rest. Now, let me show you something else. This is February 28th. I told you Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan was visiting Russia, right? Which signaled, again, in international relations, it means we're not with you, the West, right? We're not going to jump on board and sanction Russia like you are doing. We are cool with Russia. So he went to visit Putin, and he actually bought wheat and gas. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan announced Monday that his country will import about 2 million tons of wheat from Russia and buy natural gas as well under bilateral agreements the two sides signed last week. So you already see that this idea that we can isolate Russia is it's unrealistic. There are other countries who are dying to get into partnerships with Russia and increase their cooperation with Russia. And you're literally seeing it in real time. Pakistan is like, no, we're going to take the gas and we'll take your wheat. Give it. Obviously, I don't think Pakistan is going to import the same, 50 billion cubic meters of gas a year with Nord Stream 1, or at least, let's say, the current flow of gas from Russia to Germany. I don't know if it's that quantity, but this is giving you an idea. It's symbolic. Russia not actually being isolated. It really shows you that the West are living in the past. Like, they think that U.S. hegemony is the be-all, end-all, and that, you know, by isolating Russia in the West, Russia is going to decline. No, that's not how it works anymore. We have the Belt and Road Initiative. We have Greater Eurasia. China, again, a huge power, nuclear power, a huge player on the scene. Again, Pakistan is also a nuclear power. These countries, they're like, no, screw you. We are going to actually keep our ties with Russia. Even Turkey, right, didn't want to piss off the Russians and let the boats through the straits to the Black Sea. So there is no international consensus on this. There's a Western consensus. And it really reminds me of that meme where they show you the international community, right? They always use that phrase. You always hear, oh, the international community condemn such and such, the international community, this and that. And when they say international community, this is actually what they mean by international community. It's it's Western Europe, North America, and Australia. That's it. But I have news for you, my friends. That is not the entire world. That is only but a part. Now, don't get me wrong. These sanctions on Russia, they will hurt. And ironically, the British government is even acknowledging that it's going to have a knockback or it's going to have a blowback effect on people in Britain as well. Of course. You think you can just punish Russia and it's not going to hit you if you're in Europe? It is. But nevertheless, despite the sanctions hurting people in Russia, hurting people in Europe, I think that it's a bit arrogant to assume that Russia is going to be completely demolished by this. I think that they have other countries, neighboring countries that are willing to maintain ties despite what's happening in Ukraine, that are willing to further economic relationships. And I just read to you the example of Pakistan. Pepe said it. He called it. Right now, the U.S. is winning. Make no mistake. The West is winning. They got rid of Nord Stream 2. They've isolated Russia. They put tons of sanctions on Russia. It looks like they're winning. But is that, there's a phrase in English, a saying, you might have won the battle, but the war has just begun. This is just a battle. We've yet to see how this is going to play out in the long term. And if you ask me, I think the best thing Russia could do right now, and not just Russia, but the whole global South, is to get off of SWIFT. Not all in one go. I don't think that would bode well for the world economy, but to ultimately, in the long term, get off of SWIFT, develop a separate system that is not controlled by fucking bankers in Wall Street and the city of London and Frankfurt and Brussels and New York, and to just really finally have monetary independence, have financial independence, and take away this sanctioning weapon, this weapon of sanctions that they constantly wield against the civilians. It's really the civilians of the global South. That's really a huge step. And it might end up being that the United States and the West have shot themselves in the foot. You never know what kind of effects this is going to have. So we'll see. It might lead to Russia just abandoning SWIFT, China going along with Russia, and then they will basically just give the finger to the US and the West. It will backfire on them. See, that's an excellent point, is that right now, when you turn on the television, they talk about these Russian oligarchs. But you never hear them say that about Elon Musk or Bill Gates or, Mark Zuckerberg. It doesn't matter. Because if you are an agent of capitalism, specifically in the West, right? It's okay. That's encouraged. It's celebrated. You're just a self-made billionaire or millionaire, and etc. And it's glorified. But it's kind of funny. My point is, it's kind of funny that right now the corporate media, they have you angry at Russian oligarchs, and they're diverting your attention away from the American oligarchs, from the Western oligarchs that are depriving you of healthcare, depriving you of good wages, of dignity, that are robbing you blind, that send you off to die in war so they can make money. This is kind of funny because they will never criticize, corporations and oligarchs in the U.S. the way they do in Russia. They act like that's something it's inherent to the Russians or the Russian Federation, like that doesn't exist in America. Christ, talk about irony, talk about irony. It's incredible.